Great taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.
Welcome to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Steve Boss. You are. I am so glad because, you know, sometimes my memory just doesn't work as well as it would. And you've only been the co-host of the show for...
At one point, I think I was your wife, and then I wasn't, and it just it gets kind of confusing.
I know. It does get really confusing. And my wife thinks that's confusing also, by the way.
I bet.
So Kathy, I'm glad you're here. I'm going to be really sad, though. Is this your last show?
Yeah.
Oh. You are just...
I'll be back, though, at some point in about 5 months or so.
I mean...
I'm a snowbird.
How many people would like to boo because Kathy goes to Florida for the winter? Because that's just like, boo.
I'm a wimp, what can I tell you? I'm proud of it.
But you know what we're going to do? You know, because I talked to you about it already. Because we have FMC here, we're going to, and Caleb Flynn, who is fantastic at engineering everything, we're going to put Kathy on in her own kitchen down in Florida some weeks and do Skype video with her, and she's going to be cooking.
Agree to that?
Yes,
I don't
she did.
remember.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
It's you better get that checked out. Your memory. That's something you better see. Ken Malloy is here with us. Ken, welcome to Great Taste. We're so happy to have you. We're at Hy-Vee. We're live here.
Thanks.
And we're very excited because this show is going to all be about wine and food and the pairing thereof.
Yeah.
So you have been extremely busy before the show.
We are enjoying an Italian Prosecco right now.
Yes.
The pre-show.
Because that's really good to open up your taste buds, right?
It does. The fizzy, the bubble gets the taste buds kind of teased and awake and just ready for food and whatever else.
It's really fun, and there's a restaurant that I love probably more than any other restaurant in this country, and Kathy's been there with me and Rachel and numerous other people. Vetri in Philadelphia, and Mark Vetri, that's one of the signature things of Vetri, is that when you sit down at the table, they serve you a glass of Prosecco, and it's a really good Prosecco too. It's definitely wonderful to experience. So something to get the taste buds moving.
Well, all the wines we're going to be drinking and serving tonight are wines that you can buy here at Hy-Vee, and they're all very reasonably priced. The Riondo gets Wine Spectator points every year, and their price points around $13-14, I think. So compared to French Champagne, which is non-vintage French Champagne, probably starts at $35 and goes up from there. So it's nice. It's just I really love it in the summertime, drinking Prosecco. It's just so refreshing. It's not heavy alcohol, not a lot of acidity, just light and enjoyable, and it's great.
And you can fool your friends because you can tell them that, hey, how would you like a glass of champagne?
That's right. And it looks like champagne, kind of feels like champagne. It's not made like champagne, though, as you know.
No, not made like champagne. But it's really a great way to start a meal. Michael McKay is also with us. Michael is here. I guess we'll say that you're doing the assistant, the sous chef honors.
I am the sous chef.
And I understand that there's not really any substantive backstory. It's simply that Ken invites you when what happens?
He finds people that are willing to work for food.
He finds people who are willing to work for food.
Oh, work for food.
You know, I'm always willing to work for food. So
Me
I mean
too.
that's not a problem. I absolutely love food. So that's something that occurs all the time.
As long as it's good food, I'll work for
Yes,
good food.
you're right. You're right. I definitely would do it. Also, we have with us Penny Morgan from Cedar Valley Winery, and we're going to be speaking with Penny in a very short period of time because one of her wines is going to be paired with our first appetizer, right, Ken?
Actually, it is. How many wines altogether, Penny? Is it 8 wines altogether? And the one we're featuring is actually one of my favorites. It's a varietal. I let Penny talk about it, but it's called Saval, and that is actually a grape, and it's similar to like a Sauvignon Blanc, but I just absolutely love this wine. I can't get enough of this wine, and they make it just 20 miles away from here.
Actually, I'm going to do the truth confession thing right now, which is not being a snob or anything, but I've never had a very high opinion of Iowa wines in general. I've been to it, several tastings. We did a tasting once of numerous Iowa wines, and we did it with some people who, they have some interest in wine and have some knowledge of wine. And the thing that I've heard is that this particular wine of yours is an absolute beauty. Everybody loves it, and including people. I have a friend from Paris who loves good wine, and she loves your wine. So it's pretty exciting, actually, that this is actually being produced in Iowa, really close to us. Like, it's about 7 miles away, I think.
7 miles west of town. Right on the highway. You can't miss us.
Ken must get lost when he goes, I guess, because he's traveling.
Long way around.
Yeah, he's driving around in circles or something like that. I don't know what it is, but can you tell us a little bit about the operation?
Well, it's a family-run business. It sits on a little over 7 acres. I guess we have a little over 7 acres of vines. We've been growing grapes for about 10 years now. Started our own bottling in 2008. And we've just grown progressively from there, a little bit every year. The father of the whole tribe, David Miller, is the one that kind of got the ball rolling, and the youngest son in the family, Seth Miller, is our vintner, and he's the one that we have to thank for all of the wonderful wines that we have to sell.
We're going to go a little closer so that everybody can hear you. Okay, so that's quite all right. So how many different wines do you have?
Currently, we have 8 different types of wine. We have 7 different varieties of grapes that we grow on the farm.
And are all the wines then, do the grapes that you grow here in Iowa all go into your wines, or do you also use wines from other locations? Grapes, I'm sorry, from other locations.
We grow exclusively on the farm and bottle only what we have grown right there on the farm.
I'd love to hear that. That's fantastic. Because there are a number of Iowa wineries that truck in grapes from California, for example.
Very true. And that's not to minimize what they do. They do wonderful wines as well. But ours are what we call 100% vine to wine. They're also known as an estate wine. And we're very proud of that.
100% vine to wine in Iowa. I don't know. It still doesn't ring right. I don't know. What do you think about that, Ken?
I'm very impressed with the quality of the wine, because the vines are only 6-7 years old, and they were actually winning awards outside of Iowa. After the first 4 years?
Well, I believe 2009 was our first year.
So that's terrific. I mean, really, really, really terrific. And I think it's exciting. Now, did Iowa have a history of grapes being grown for wine before the last 10 years or so?
We did back before Prohibition, is my understanding. Iowa farmers grew a lot of fruit trees, and a lot of grapes. And a lot of the grapes were used for wine. And then Prohibition came along, and Iowa farmers had to find another way to support their families. Yeah, so
that's fascinating, actually. Michael, I just noticed that your wife left. I don't know if that means anything special, that she didn't stick around for what you're doing, but I wanted to let you know in case you didn't notice that she walked out. So, you think that's okay?
I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think it would be all right. All right, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing, Ken, so that we can get a little picture. Give us an overall view of what we're going to be doing during the show.
Michael has helped me make a kind of a citrus salsa, and which includes grilled oranges, grilled yellow and red tomatoes, serrano peppers, and some fresh Italian parsley, and some white balsamic. And we're mixing that up, and that's kind of getting all together. And then we're going to be grilling some salmon, Scottish salmon, and that's going to go on top of a crostini.
And the Scottish salmon is going on the grill right now on skin side down to start with.
Skin side down. That's going to stay on that way the whole time. No, actually, this is a seasoning that is right here. You can buy it right in the shelf.
Paul Prudhomme,
Yep.
Magic Salmon Seasoning.
And I just put a light coating of oil on it, and just let it get nice and.
And you're covering it with with foil, I see.
Normally, how we doing? Normally, I do everything on the grill. I don't cook seafood inside because I just don't like the seafood smell in the house. So I do everything out on the grill 12 months out of the year, you know. So, yeah, just so it kind of keeps the heat together.
So you're going to keep the heat in by covering it with the foil. Mm-hmm. And about how long are you going to put it on the grill? And also,
I've never cooked on this particular,
right.
So
that's what I was going to ask you. Also, was what type of heat are we looking for with this piece? What would you say the thickness of that piece of salmon is? Well,
it varies.
It's yeah. So at its thickest point, it's about an inch, I think, right. Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, the farm raised or the this is a Scottish salmon. Also bought it here at Hy-Vee as well. And then what we have is some wonton wrappers, which you also buy here. You just give it that's going to be another course. You just, whatever oil you like to use. I use olive oil. Just a light, quick brushing on both sides. Coarse salt and pepper on it. We're filling it with Neufchâtel cheese. Then we put some imitation crab, a bunch of Gruyere cheese, which you also got here. That gets nice and creamy and yummy. Goes in the oven, and what happens is the wonton on the outside gets crispy and crunchy, and then the part that's in the cupcake holder here is still plenty moist, so you have that crunchy, chewy, moist, creamy, and then we just put a little bit of cilantro paste on top. It just kind of looks nice.
Okay, so you're lining. What's happening is that the wonton holder is actually being put into the cupcake mold.
Yeah, mini cupcake molds.
Right, mini cupcake mold.
Yeah.
So that's easy. These are great party ideas for the holidays.
Yeah.
Or any time, but of course for all the holiday entertaining that people will do.
It's not really rocket science, and it's not really a hard thing to do. You can get the kids to help you with this this type of activity, and 375 in the oven. And again, depending on how the oven is, that should take somewhere around 10-15 minutes. So we'll see how that all goes.
Okay, so that's dish number 2. We had the salmon first with is it on the garlic toast? Is that what it is?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
With the salsa. Right.
All right.
Yeah.
And what your suggestions for people who are grilling salmon in terms of heat?
Well, I pretty much do it on the highest heat. Anything I do is pretty much, I want to do high because that's a constant that I know how to measure with. So if I'm, yeah, Mike, please go ahead and have Mike jump in here on that question.
Well, there's a foolproof way to do salmon on a grill. Yeah, what you do is, so what you do is you actually make it into a packet. You wrap it all the way around twice. And put some veggies, maybe some tomato in it, maybe some lemon, some dill.
Are we wrapping it in foil?
In foil, yes. And then you put it on the grill, 10 minutes, turn it over once, you'll hear it puff, you'll see it puff up, you'll hear it kind of sizzle, and it's done. It's always perfect.
Is it going to be nice and rare inside? Moist?
It'll be moist all the way through.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try it and see if that works, because it sounds delicious. And we definitely, one thing we do not want is dry salmon. I cannot believe this, but actually, have you ever run into this where people, well, it's the same, people say, how do you want your salmon? And, well done. I'm like, how do you even swallow it? Well done. I
know. I went out with some people just last week, and they sent it back twice because it wasn't done enough. It's amazing.
I just can't even, I don't even understand. It's just totally bizarre to me. But anyway. You're missing a whole lot if you're getting your salmon cooked well done. That's all I can say. All right, Ken. So we've got the toast with the salmon.
So anybody in our audience want any
toast
Prosecco?
with the salmon. Okay. Anybody want any prosecco? If we're gonna do this, I love. The really sad thing is that the listeners. The really sad thing is that the listeners don't get to partake, so they have to just enjoy everybody enjoying. So the most important thing right now is that we are progressing. This is a progression, right? That we're going to be doing here. Yes. So first is the appetizer with the salmon and the toast.
Yes.
And then we've got the imitation crab. I'm going to call it a modified crab rangoon. Is that okay? Is that fair enough to say? A modified crab rangoon?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So that's good. And there'll be a vegetarian version for those people who would like that.
Good.
And then what happens after that?
As far as course-wise?
Actually, let's go back 1 second. Where's the salsa again being served?
The salsa is going to go on top of the garlic toast, and then we're going to put the grilled salmon on top of that.
Okay, and in the salsa
Sounds
again,
great.
what are the ingredients? One more time.
We have grilled oranges. We have serrano peppers. We have grilled yellow onions. We have Italian parsley. We have lime juice, white balsamic. Is that everything? And then a little salt and pepper.
And, of course, this is the kind of thing that you can adjust to your own taste. How much you're going to put in, how much onion you're going to put in, how much orange you're going to... You didn't say orange. How much how much vinegar, how much lime juice, all those types of things. You can adjust to your own taste. But I think one of the key ingredients to this salsa is the fact that you grilled some of the vegetables that are in there ahead to enhance the flavors, bump them up another level. That's great. Okay. So, what's next after that?
After that, we're going to have some beef tenderloin sliders. And that's with caramelized onions, some crumbled blue cheese, maybe do a little horseradish on that as well, on a snowflake roll. And that's with the Eruption red wine, which is a red blend that Eric Porter here at the Hy-Vee wine store suggested. So he says we can't miss, and it's really a great value wine. It's about $11.
Okay, all right. This is going to be pretty exciting. Hopefully, everybody has their own designated drivers with them because KRUU is not responsible for anything that happens, or Hy-Vee, right? Is not responsible, or FMC, or whoever else we have here. By the way, Tom Allen is here. Tom, say hi to everybody with your instrument.
Hey, good afternoon, good evening, everybody.
What do you got to sing for us?
You're gonna let me get started.
Oh, Tom, please.
I got a little nicer one for later on.
That's great. All right. Well, we'll come back to you later. Thanks for being here with your guitar, because I absolutely love how it enhances everything. Kathy's, meanwhile, is making up some of the crab rangoons, and we're going to have all kinds of different things for people to try, and including versions that you can, if you're vegan, it's going to be tough, but if you're vegetarian, you can easily turn this into a vegetarian option, which they're going to do. And I'm not sure you can turn the beef tenderloin into a vegetarian option, though. That'll be if you can do that, Ken, that'll be a real trick, I must tell you. You know, you can do it. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so a couple of things. Hopefully everybody had a great Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving? Work out really well, nicely? I'm asking everybody in the studio audience. You can yell or you can, okay, thumbs up, great, okay. So that's good. It's tough on the radio when you have an audience like this. Anyway, we had a terrific Thanksgiving, and Kathy DuBois made a wonderful dish. Everybody made a wonderful dish. And I think that the one thing I took away from this Thanksgiving was that it's really fun when people come together, and then when they bring food that they've spent a lot of time working on, and the dishes are just wonderful, it just makes just a great difference. And I just think that eating is always such a special experience when you're eating with people. And that kind of brings me back, Ken, to something that I really feel about wine in general, and that is so many people, for example, they go on a trip. They go to France, they go to Italy, or they go somewhere else, and they have a bottle of wine, and they drink this wine, and then it was so wonderful. They write down the name of it. They come back, and they get the wine, and they open it up, and they try it, and they go, oh, I don't remember it tasting like that. I mean, that's okay, but it wasn't anywhere near the same experience. And I was talking to Dennis Lopp, the catering manager here at Hy-Vee, before the show, and I was saying that I think a lot of wine culture, in my opinion, has to do with romance. And romancing the subject, romance in terms of the location, all those types of things, they lift the experience of drinking that wine to a completely different level, that when you take it out of the place you were at, for example, changes it completely.
I agree. That's very true. It's a very, very common experience. It certainly happened for me. I mean, you'll remember like, oh, I remember I had this wine, and you'll describe the entire meal, what the appetizer was, the da-da-da-da. everything about it. And it's very true. It's that way with a lot of other things too, but wine is one of those things where just like, or even seeing a movie, that remember you saw it with, your best buddy or your mom or dad or your girlfriend or whatever it was, and you're just like, oh, that's the greatest movie, and then you sit down and watch it and you're just like, maybe it's not so great.
But I think it is really interesting, and for me, the entire experience of drinking wine is really something that I feel is enhanced by knowledge of the producer, knowledge of what types of foods we're supposed to go with. I love the fact that there's a big flame coming out of the grill right now. That's that's great. And everyone who's listening is really in good shape because they're not going to have to, watch their eyes tear up and with all the smokes rising in here. So that's perfect. Anyway, it's a really interesting thing about wine. Has anybody had that experience, by the way, where they've gone somewhere and had a bottle of wine? It's been a really amazing, romantic place, and then they've come back and gotten the wine, and it was like, yeah, this is okay, but sure doesn't mean the same thing as it did before. Anybody had that, want to share anything? Had an experience like that? Or has anyone had a particular travel experience where they visited a winery or they went to a particular restaurant and had a tremendous bottle of wine that it stuck with them? Nobody. Well, then hopefully this evening you're going to really enjoy some terrific pairings, because it's really important for us to give you that experience. Bob, would you like to come up here? That would be terrific, because I really appreciate that you want to share something with everybody.
Well, I have a related experience, and that's it's like I often drink a little wine at home, and
How much is a little?
2 ounces, 3 ounces.
Okay, just checking.
And it always it creates a great mood for me when I have a meal that I eat and then I have the wine, and it slows things down.
Slows things down. Okay. I could use Kath. We discussed your problem last week, so I don't think we need to go into that again, right? Where we were discussing how
I don't think we need to call it a problem.
Well, it's true. Actually, it's entertainment. Since Kathy always is very funny for a few minutes after she starts
and then it's time to go to bed.
Right, and then it's time to go to bed. So that takes care of that. So, Michael, what about you? Do you have any experiences that you'd like to share with us as far as did you have any kind of an awakening experience when it came to wine?
No.
You just always loved it.
No, I grew up in a non-wine culture. I grew up in Detroit, and I remember I went back to visit my family in Detroit, and I went to a restaurant there, and I asked to see the wine list, and the owner came out to see who would want to see a wine list in Detroit. And so,
what do they drink in Detroit?
Beer and whiskey, yeah, typically, And so, it wasn't until I moved to California, and then later to Austin, Texas, that I got into wine.
It's interesting because my father never drank wine either, and he moved to California. He always drank beer, or whatever he called beer, because it was just that kind of stuff that has a lot of water in it. But when he moved to California, he started drinking wine.
Trader Joe's was my downfall. I mean, because you could get a really good bottle of wine in the 70s for $1, and it was amazing. You can buy a whole case for like $15 and take it home.
Well, it's an interesting thing because California has different, depending upon the years, they have tremendous production in terms of quantities of wines. And I actually did business with a company called 99-cent only stores. And 99-cent only stores, they would from time to time be able to actually buy some amazing quantities, literally truckloads of California wine, and have them for 99 cents. And in addition to that, because everybody's kind of thinking, could they possibly be any good? Well, the New York Times actually did an article about some of the wines that they bought and was talking about how amazing some of them were for 99 cents.
There are some really excellent wines out for $10, $12. And the former wine manager, or actually store manager for Drugtown that was owned by Hy-Vee over on 6th Street, Tom Toohill. Ken and I turned him on to a wine called Marietta years ago, and I ran into Tom recently. Hi, Tom, if you're listening. And he asked me if I'm still high on Marietta wines, and I am. Yeah, they're wonderful. They're like $10 and excellent.
It's really fun, isn't it, to discover something it's a great deal?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, everybody works hard for their money, and if you're going to enjoy wine, you should enjoy it at a price that you can afford. You don't have to spend a lot of money for really good wine.
Well, nobody's spending anything for really good wine on Great Taste, so that's fantastic. By the way, you're listening to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Steve Boss. Kathy DuBois is here. Ken Malloy is with us, cooking up a storm. Michael McKay, also Penny Morgan from Cedar Valley Winery. And we want to thank Tom Allen for providing the music. And Jason, no matter what we do, it just doesn't work, does it? Jason Strong, who's doing the video for FMC, and we had all these brilliant ideas of how we were going to make sure nobody walked in front of me, and it's already happened a million times. No, that's all right. It's just funny, actually. I get a kick out of it. Caleb Flynn is engineering for KRUU, and we thank Hy-Vee for providing this, but we're going to have to get them a better exhaust system, quite obviously. And hopefully we're all going to we'll air our closeout actually when we get home later on this evening. All right, so I want to mention that we have a couple of giveaways. Really excited. Ken, what did you bring?
I brought a really fun book, and I brought a bottle of wine. The bottle of wine is a Russian River Pinot Noir, which is not easily found. It's not top shelf, but it's something that's very food friendly. And so that's it right there. And then this is a really fun book. We were talking about this before the show started. There is original. It's called What Einstein Told Us Cook. And this is a great way to introduce food and culinary and stuff to somebody who's not a foodie. If somebody like a young boy or something like that, or a young girl, who is kind of more of a science person, this is, they're very humorous. They're very short little 1-page, 2-page, 3-page type of thing. But this is the second one. This is called What Einstein Told His Cook Part 2.
By Robert Wolk.
Yeah, and this is all, just straight science, and it's pretty fascinating stuff, and it's very entertaining. And you could do a whole show on it.
And you had a gift too, Michael? My goodness gracious. That's pretty wild. Huh? It's because you're leaving. Right, okay. Very interesting.
A bottle of that Marietta old vine. And if Tom Toohill can get down here really quickly, maybe he can have some.
That's terrific. And one more. This is, I don't know we're not going to have anything for the rest of the shows for the next year or something like that because of everything. But anyway, the ultimate appetizers, because we're doing appetizers. Better Homes and Gardens Ultimate Appetizers. So how we're going to get this worked out, I don't know yet. We'll think about it, and we'll see how we're going to make those giveaways happen. Next week on Great Taste, we have author Robin Schulman. Eat the City is her book, a tale of the fishers, farmers, butchers, farmers, fishers, foragers, sorry about that, butchers, farmers, poultry minders, sugar refiners, cane cutters, beekeepers, winemakers, and brewers who built New York. So I think it's going to be it's a very highly... How's everybody doing with the smoke, okay? It's a very well-reviewed book, and Robin will be on Great Taste through Skype video, and also with us will be Luke Taylor. Luke is a local chef. He's a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. He's right now in the MUM Sustainable Living Program, and he's going to be doing 3 soups with us next Wednesday, and so that is going to be another delicious soup for the winter is absolutely perfect. So, Ken, you're busy preparing the salmon, and I love to see that because it looks like it's just perfectly moist.
It is very moist.
Yeah.
And we're just about ready to start loading them up here. I forgot there's a little something that I put in the salsa, which is just a teeny crumbles of feta cheese.
Nice.
It gives it a little note of saltiness, which you probably don't need with the salmon, but it kind of cuts through more of that citrus, and it has a nice creamy addition to it as well.
Which is interesting because talk about pairing. Most people don't serve cheese with fish, so that's a very interesting thing. We're gonna see what we think about that.
It's all textures. It's all textures. Yeah.
Kath, what's up?
I'm putting the feta on the...
Yeah, you're
and trying to keep
your
my
back
eyes
is to
open.
the camera, by the way, so it's... that's really good. Fairfield Public Library, or the library where you're at, all good libraries have plenty of books on wine and food. I have some bookmarks that you can pass around which show you some of the wonderful books that the Fairfield Public Library has, and we want to make a couple of recommendations. One of them is not a book that the Fairfield Public Library has. Two of them aren't, matter of fact, but Ken and I have two favorites. One is What to Drink with What You Eat by Andrew Dornberg and Karen Page. And Ken?
Perfect Pairings by Evan Goldstein. Mm-hmm. And actually his wife, I believe, is Sarah, and she does all the cooking and photography for the book. I don't have that with me, but it is one of the quintessential wine pairing books that I would recommend.
And his mother, Joyce Goldstein, is a great chef, and one of our audience members used to love to go to her restaurant in San Francisco Square One, and I actually have a couple of her books and love them. So comes from a very, very good family. So wherever I seem to go, they're following me, Jason. I don't know what to say about it, but so now what wine are we going to pair? This is going to be our first wine pairing. How about telling us a little bit about the wine again that we're going to pair with the salmon dish, and then maybe just a little bit of insight into how to discover good wine pairings on your own.
That is, I leave that to the experts as far as the wine pairings, but lighter wines with lighter dishes, heavier wines with heavier dishes, I guess would be kind of the beginning level. The Sauvignon Blanc, which is I think the first one I ever had was a good.
They're discussing whether or not the stuffed wontons are really finished or not. So meantime, we'll have our own discussion because we don't want to be left out.
So the Sauvignon Blanc, the first Sauvignon Blanc I ever had was actually a French Sancerre, and that was really just an eye opener as far as what the minerality of the soil, the freshness, the crispness of the fruit, and then just this kind of the weight, how it just kind of coats your mouth, and then putting that with light dishes, fish dishes, cheese, whatever it is, that was really kind of what I was going for. And the Céval from Cedar Valley Winery is really just, I think it hits it out of the park.
It'll be really interesting to try that. How many people, by the way, who are here really consider themselves wine drinkers? I'm interested just so that we can see. Okay. Quite a few. Interesting. So it looks like you've got a very learned audience here, Ken. So that I want to know a little bit about how did you get to appreciate and enjoy wine so much? Did you have one particular experience that led you?
There is a culmination of them. I, like Michael and probably most of us in this room, we grew up, not a wine family at all. I mean, if there ever was wine, it was around the holidays, and it came out of a jug or a box.
Or Manishewitz.
So that was basically it. And when I became 18, I worked at a dinner theater and then a restaurant, and then I was also working in a wine shop in kind of a highbrow area in New York on Long Island in a town called Locust Valley. And this fellow, Pat Alicio, he basically was my mentor, and he opened me up to Italian wines and French wines, and it was just like a whole nother...
You need some more?
Yeah.
Whole nother world.
Okay. All right. We should
So it
start
was a whole
serving.
other world that opened up to you then.
It really was, and it really kind of made sense to me. It just like everything made sense to me. And then I discovered a wine reviewer, Robert Parker, and he does a monthly thing. He's been doing it since the mid-'70s. He's pretty much one of the greatest wine reviewers. I mean, if he gives you a good mark, your wine is anointed. You're going to make a lot of money and sell a lot of wine. He came up with a 100-point system. He's the one who invented that. He's out of Baltimore. And his wine thing, there's no advertising like the Wine Spectator. They kind of pander, in my opinion, to their clients.
Wine Spectator is a monthly magazine.
Which is a great magazine, and there's great articles and things about food and wine and travel and stuff like that. But their reviews kind of pander to their advertisers, whereas we should go ahead and serve food and
it'd be better if you hand it out. That would be terrific.
All right, let's do that.
So Parker, what you're saying is he's objective in his subjectivity. So that's also very interesting, because obviously the whole idea of tasting any kind of food, whether you're a wine reviewer, a food reviewer, whatever it is, it's subjective. And something that you may love is something that somebody else may not love quite as much. But I think that one thing we can agree on, whether it's food or whether it's wine, if it's good, you can understand why it's good and enjoy it immensely. And those are things that I think anyone can recognize, whether they really like it or not. They can always recognize that it's something really delicious and wonderful. Jason, how are you doing there, buddy? Are you doing okay? That's great. As people continue to walk back and forth through over the camera. Yes, we can hear you. You're sounding really good.
I lost my
so
mic
Ken,
there for a moment.
do you agree with me that it's something that people can really relate to in terms of if there's a good wine, it may not be your taste, but it's something that you can learn to appreciate, whether you end up wanting to drink it or not. Just like a good piece of salmon, a lot of people don't like fish, but really, it's a real, I think it's a skill to learn how to appreciate different foods, different wines, even if it's not something that you're going to partake of.
I totally agree. There are certain rules that I have about wine, and that one of the rules is there's no wrong wine for you. It's just what you like. Some people just like white wine. Some people just like sweet wine. Some people just like red wines and stuff like that, and that's fine. The only thing I would say is just try something. Try and get out of your comfort zone a little bit, and really, this is a beer culture. America always will be. I don't think it'll ever be a wine culture. But right now is probably the best time to be a wine drinker, because now more than 25 years ago, there's so much more wines on the market now. They're much more price. There's more quality at a lower price point than there ever has been. And there's probably more wine drinkers in America now than there ever has been as well.
So if somebody wants to learn more about wine, what would your suggestions be?
Frankly, I would...
Yes, drinking it, Michael, very good.
I would grab probably a couple of bottles a week. Go to Hy-Vee here.
Or wherever you might have.
Yeah, wherever
if you have a Trader Joe's, they're still
yeah,
they have a lot of wine
and
in their department.
Tell them what you like, or tell them what you're going to cook, or what you're planning, and they'll kind of steer you that way. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Then just figure, just from there, see what you like, and then kind of grow from there. But that's where I would go. I mean, you can read about it and stuff like that, but really go to the people who are in the know, and then you'll kind of see, I don't agree with that. Oh, yeah, that's really good. I like that. Let's have more of that kind of wine, And then there's always another price point that's even higher, that's more of what you like, but you have to pay more for it.
Right. So it's a progressive thing. It can be something that could be draining, I think, if you get really excited about it in terms of your pocketbook. But another thing, and you mentioned this, you happened to get in touch with somebody who was a restaurateur who introduced you to wines, and I had the same experience, because I think that it's amazing to me when you actually have somebody who knows and really understands the intricacies of taste and how to pair that with food, because the experience itself is not something that you, for me anyway, it's not something that I could have gotten on my own. I don't have the type of mind that actually works in a way to understand, if you eat this with this particular wine because of these qualities, you're going to have a fantastic experience. So if you can find somebody who really understands the elements that are necessary to pair food and wine together, I think you're going to find that your world really can be rocked, because that's what happened to me. And for me, it was a friend of mine, Jeff Benjamin, if you read the blog post, who owns 4 restaurants along with his partner, Mark Vetri, in Philadelphia. And Jeff introduced me to many different wines over a number of years. And the experience was just extraordinary because he knew exactly. He'd bring me a portion of food and he'd bring me a taste of wine and say, okay, try this with that. And it's just something that is amazing and so interesting and exciting, actually, when you get involved in that particular experience, because it's so much more fun. Because, I mean, I think all of us have probably had the experience of going to a restaurant and having some wine with our meal, and it's, it's fine and whatever. It's kind of like that. It's like, okay. But when you have the experience of actually the perfect wine with the right food, it brings a totally different dimension out that has a lot of fascinating things that occur with it. Kath, what? Oh, thank you, Ken. I haven't.
Why don't you have the one without my bite in it?
Have the one without your bite. Oh, that's really nice that you were going to do that. So, what about you, Kath? What have you had any interesting experiences as far as wine is concerned, other than going to sleep?
I think the best experience I ever had was with you and Rachel at Vetri, and we had a tasting menu. There were probably about 7 courses, and each one paired with a glass of wine, and it was just incredible the experience of that. And the other thing I wanted to point out is in a lot of cities there are wine shops, and you can go for wine tastings in the shop, and so that'll give you a little bit of an education about wines.
Does anybody want to just describe the experience that they had with this salmon and this wine? Anybody have something that they thought was interesting that they want to share? I mean, I did immediately. I thought it was really fascinating. The wine enhanced the taste of the garlic in the toast. It enhanced the taste of the salmon itself on my tongue. It was just really just a little flavor burst, just having that there. So it's just lovely. And to think that it came from Iowa, that's even better. Did the salmon come from Iowa? Probably. We haven't gotten that far, right? Right, freezer in Iowa. That's perfect. Okay. You're listening to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Steve Boss. Tom Allen is here with all kinds of musical wonders. Can you share something else with us?
A little French song. This is Ah les France de la Frontaille, la bon vent de la bamboo, la 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 la. Raspberries, strawberries, the good wines we brew. Here's to the girls of the countryside.
Ah, French drinking song. What a perfect pairing. Thank you, Tom. Really love that. That's great. All right. So what's up next, by the way? Now that we've learned how to cook salmon, we've learned how to make salsa, we've learned how to make little popovers with wontons, but there's still more.
There is more.
These are adorable.
Really, really
nice. I've never
nice.
used wontons. I've seen a lot of recipes for them, and and they're really easy.
So describe that again, Ken, will you? In terms of the wonton, exactly what you did.
So you take your wonton wrapper.
So wonton wrappers you can find wonton wrappers everywhere, and they really can serve a lot of purposes. You can make all kinds of appetizers with them.
Yeah, it's actually, so what I did is you just do a light brushing of whatever oil you like to use on both sides, just so it's covered. You don't want to have it saturated. I put coarse salt and pepper on both sides. Then you put them in the cupcake holder.
Well, I don't know.
Mini cupcake holder.
Talk about a wine.
And one little kind of half spoon of Neufchâtel, which is like a cream cheese. Then your seafood, and then we put a bunch of Gruyere on top, and it all kind of melts together. It's real happy. As you can see, let's get them. See how I do.
Yeah, it's very nice.
It's a little crispy on the outside, but it's kind of moist on the bottom, and we kind of dot it with a little cilantro paste. It's super yummy, and we're serving that with a French white Burgundy. It's a Macon Village, the Louis Jadot, which is one of the biggest producers of wine in that region, the Burgundy region. And one thing that a lot of people may or may not know, this is probably a pretty savvy audience, that all the French name their wines after the land that it grows on. This is a Chardonnay that we're going to be drinking with this appetizer. White Burgundies was a game changer for me. The first one I had was actually kind of high-end. It was a Bouligny Montrachet, but still, all white Burgundies that was a game changer. It just has so much body and backbone and minerality and all the things that I mentioned about the Seyval from Cedar Valley, but up, maybe eight times or something like that.
8 times. That's serious. Now, this brings up an interesting question. A lot of people that I've talked to over the years, and when I listen to people talking about wine, many of them, and these are even some people who know wines, seem to have a bias against anything that's white, no matter what it is. And so for me, listening to you now, this is fascinating to me because you're not a casual wine drinker.
No, I drink a lot more red than I do white. I drink a lot more whites in the summertime than I do in the wintertime, but I still drink whites in the wintertime. And this would be a reason why to do it. There are very inexpensive white burgundies like this one. I think it's around 20 or less. They can go up to $175 or even higher for like a Botard, Montrachet or something like that. There aren't a lot of producers in that area, but that area is all the Macon, and Macon, France is kind of west central France, and it's south of Dijon and north of Lyon, and oh my goodness, just really good stuff.
So another question that I have, Ken, because I think it's also part of this whole culture, if we want to get into learning a little bit more about wines, besides just tasting all of the wines and trying to find somebody to help mentor you, because I think that's a great idea. Reading, there's also opportunities for reading. And I think that another way to go about doing it is also to really explore one type of wine for a while just to get a real insight into it.
I totally agree with that. That is, in fact, Michael and I studied Pinot Noir for about 4 years. We actually did this experiment where there was this wine retailer in California, and I called him up, and I was already kind of a kind of a Francophile where I thought only good Pinot Noir comes from France, and this guy had the other opinion. He was just like, "Are you kidding me? There hasn't been a better Pinot Noir, made outside of the United States since 1976." And I was like, "Oh wow, really?" So he turned me on to a bunch of different California ones and Oregon wines, and Michael and I tasted. We bought 1 bottle each, and we got 12, so we tested 12, and really one of those 12 we fell in love with. And we reordered and reordered. We still buy wines from them, and it's a winery out of the Willamette Valley in Oregon, and the vintner is Shinane, spelled Sineanne, and I can't think of the guy's last name, but his name was Peter, and I've actually called the winery, and he answers the phone.
Well, that's
and I talked to him like for 45 minutes about wine.
Sure. I mean, I think that's part of the whole experience, is actually being able to talk to the people who are doing it. And I loved meeting the gentleman Steve Miller, who's one of the owners of Cedar Valley, because he said, "Come on out, we'll take you through and show you everything." And that would be anybody who wanted to be on, come there and learn about how do they prune, how do they take care of the vines, what type of varieties are they growing, how do they actually how do they take those grapes and turn them into wine. People who are craftsmen love to share their ideas. They love to share their experience. That's just normal.
It's really a family affair at Cedar Valley, and he has 2 other brothers. Obviously, Penny, his sister, is there, and everybody's there. And I've gone to a couple events out there, and it's really laid back. It really is a lot of fun. They have a lot of cool knickknacks in the shop, but tasting all the wines, they'll show you how the whole operation works, and they have a lot of fun events out there, during the summertime and stuff like that. It's a cool spot, and there's no pretentiousness there at all. They love what they do, and they love to share what they do, and they've had a lot of success, not just in this region. They've taken the wines to both coasts. Right, Penny? You've taken the wines in competitions to both coasts and done well? Or
Texas and Finger Lakes,
okay.
New York.
Right.
What other areas of the country are producing some great wines? I mean, she just mentioned one, the Finger Lakes in New York.
My wife is from that area, and I had no idea how many wineries there are. There's the Five Finger Lakes, obviously, and they just line both coasts of those. I only know Cayuga Lake and another one, and we did some wines, and they excel in the German style wines. It's that climate, the soil there or something, but their Rieslings are some of the best made in this country from the Finger Lakes of New York. They're really nice.
And the other wine that you mentioned earlier was Sancerre. That was a wine that you said started to change the way you actually felt about it. And Sancerre is another very, very interesting wine that is really approachable, I think, for most people.
Oh yeah, it's light, but there's like an acidity that's very sneaky about it. There's actually, not many people would agree, but there's actually a kind of a saline quality to it. There's a saltiness to it that it's just like, why would I want to drink a salty wine? But it's very pleasant. It's just kind of like a hint underneath. And also some of the Sancerres even have like just a hint of vanilla in them. And you would think, well, that must be from the wood, but a lot of them are made in stainless. Most of them are probably made in stainless steel. So some of the Sancerres, Chotard is one of the, I can't think of the fellow's first name, but Chotard is one of the Sancerres that I love. And I think you get them from Kermit Lynch importers, and they're not crazy money. You know, they're like $26. And for my money, maybe some of the best white wines you can buy, period. And that says a lot for me.
There's a great book that Kermit Lynch wrote, Adventures on the Wine Route. And so that's a great book for anybody who wants to learn more about wines. Kermit Lynch was actually probably the person who began to introduce really fine wines to the United States quite a while ago.
True.
Traveled
and
all over
also
France.
Not the high end, the
Exactly.
grower levels, the smaller people who are really doing it the old-fashioned way, have been doing it for centuries. Everybody in France drinks them. Everybody in France knows them, but we would never know them here. And he's a champion, certainly, of bringing those wines to this country, and has been for decades.
I think wine is another thing that's really fun to actually explore in that way, because when you go to Europe, for example, everybody makes their own wine, almost. Everybody has their own garden, and they also make their own wine. And they have their own chickens or whatever, and it's so much fun to actually experience the culture of being able to be with people who want to share those particular things with you. And I remember one night, this was like one of the most profound emotional experiences I had around any type of alcoholic beverage or any type of beverage at all. I was at a home in outside of Verona, and we had a meal with this family, and at the end of the meal, the wife brought out this bottle of Nocino, which is a digestivo. It's a digestive. It's an amaro, something that is made from nuts. And she said, I want to share this bottle. This bottle was made by my father, who passed away a number of years ago, and it's the last one that we have. And it was just so amazing because when you think about it, here's something that right now is just very emotional even thinking about it. She wanted to share that. This was something that was so important to her and so much a part of her family, and she wanted to share it with guests, which is, to me, just an amazing experience. Some type of hospitality culture that I'm not sure we have exactly the same here in the United States. Maybe it's just because of that we're still so young. We do have it. I mean, we are very hospitable. People talk about being in the South, for example, and how everybody's very hospitable there. And I've found people that are open their homes to us, to you, no matter where you are in this country. But there's so much more tradition, I think, and so much more hands-on craftsmanship that is a part of other cultures. And if you get to visit them and experience them, it's a wonderful thing that enriches your life tremendously. I think that the enthusiasm that you get then from people who you meet really spreads into everything that you then want to become involved in afterwards.
The more you know about it, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there on the person's property, you get to meet the people who make it, you're sitting there, you're drinking it, you're eating the fruit of the region. It goes back to that experience that you talked about earlier, just like this was the greatest bottle of wine I ever had. Well, you can't buy it in the States. It probably cost about $6, and yet it was that romance, it was that experience, and it was all the connection of all that, and that's great. That's great.
You're listening to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Steve Boss. Kathy DuBois is here, and we have been talking about wine and food. Next week, again, Robin Schulman, author of Eat the City, will be our guest on Skype video, and in here at Hy-Vee in the Hy-Vee kitchen, Luke Taylor, graduate of the Culinary Institute of America and locally now learning about sustainable living here in Iowa and Fairfield, will make about 3 different soups for us, I think, winter soups for us to enjoy. So that's going to be fun and delicious. And we invite you to join in then for 60 minutes of the best tasting radio you'll ever experience. One of the things that, is there anybody who needed vegetarian versions? Did everybody get vegetarian versions of that last one? Yes? Yes. Okay, excellent. Very good. So I think that another thing that I want to mention to everybody is that Hy-Vee has a wine tasting dinner coming up, and this, of course, is something that maybe listeners can find in other cities too, but the Hy-Vee wine dinner on Thursday, December 6th, so that's something you might want to check out and see whether it's something that you can explore locally about wines. Now, I want to thank Kathy because, as you know, she said this is her last show for a few months, other than we're going to have her on Skype video, but she and another friend gave me a fantastic gift just last week, and I'm so excited about it. And I've already invited a number of people, and it's called A Taste of Greatness. And all these chefs are going to come to my house. I just can't even believe this because you guys are so generous. It only cost $250,000. And I just was blown away. Thank you. Thank you.
It was in the Neiman Marcus Christmas catalog. And it's Thomas Keller. And who else? There's 3 or 4 chefs.
Well, let's see. Besides Thomas Keller, Danielle Boulud, Jerome Bocuse, and Richard Rosendale.
Okay, so you can invite 9 of your friends.
Yes, and I've already done that.
And they'll come to your house and prepare a meal. And it's only $250,000.
I know, and you're amazing. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much. Let's give Kathy a hand for doing that. If there's any leftovers, we'll bring them to the show, the next Great Taste. All right, any other final little pointers to get people excited about wine that you want to offer?
Really, just going back to just start experimenting. Go with the foods that you love to eat, already, and try and start pairing them. Again, heavier wines with the heavier foods, medium. Pinot Noir is probably the most food-friendly wine I think there is. Oregon has hundreds of them. California has a bunch. There's many from France and Washington State and stuff like that. But that's a great one to start with, and I would go that way.
Sounds great, Ken. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ken, Michael, Penny. Thank you all very much. Thank you to all the people who made this happen, and we'll be back next week with Great Taste live at Hy-Vee for 60 minutes of delicious radio.
Let's hear it for Steve.
And would you, Mr. Allen, like to take us out of here?
Great taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.